Are you feeling that morning dread of logging in and facing a day's work? Your energy, your enthusiasm drained? It could be just a bad week, or your workplace itself could be toxic. But how do you tell the difference? Studies from MIT, Gallup, Ohio State, and other sources are disturbing. 75% of employees have experienced burnout, 47% reported manager favoritism, 50% experienced workplace bullying. So you're not overreacting. I've identified 12 clear signs from academic sources that separate a tough week from a toxic workplace. For me, these signs are at three levels, and understanding which level you're dealing with is super important. Let's start at the team level. If you work for a large company, you may be chatting with colleagues in other divisions who have great job satisfaction, so the toxicity you're dealing with is within your team. First of these team level factors is a classic micromanagement. This is excessive monitoring, constantly having to give status updates, and a lead or senior colleague who is second guessing your work. You just don't have the autonomy you need to do your job. This is a productivity killer. And it's not just annoying, it destroys confidence and the sense of self worth. It's demoralizing. The second key team level sign is poor communication. And this is more complex than just long winded emails. This is information being deliberately siloed or kept from you. Or you get the requirements, but they are vague or keep changing. And when you give feedback to that effect, you're asking for clarity, you're just ignored. It makes communication a one-way street. And the problem is that when you don't know what the priorities are, you feel like you have to do everything at once. You're not on your own. A Gallup study found that half of employees are confident that they know what's expected of them. So you're in the half that doesn't know what's expected of them. The third localized toxic factor is a lack of recognition. Your hard work goes unnoticed, contributions get downplayed, successes aren't celebrated. It's the feeling that your efforts just vanish into a black hole. Look, why do work psychologists say that recognition is important to you, your team, and your company? It's because it validates your efforts and, crucially for the company, it makes that next hard climb feel worthwhile. But in a toxic workplace, that emotional validation is withheld. It's incredibly demotivating to the employee. The next sign is a culture of blame. When mistakes happen, as they inevitably do, the focus immediately shifts to finding a scapegoat. It's not about learning or improving the process. Failure isn't an opportunity for growth in this culture, it's a moment for public punishment, like being berated in a team meeting. And that creates fear, and fear kills collaboration. People stop being team players and start just protecting themselves. Colleagues withhold information, or even worse, they throw their coworkers under the bus. It becomes dog eat dog. And that fear feeds directly into the next critical sign at a team level, and that's poor work-life balance. And this isn't just about demanding deadlines once a quarter. This is where the team normalizes unmanageable workloads, those perpetually looming deadlines, and the implicit expectation that you will use your evenings and weekends to catch up, not just occasionally, but constantly. When your management consistently demands weekends and nights, it's a signal that their planning and resource system is broken. They're using your willingness to overwork as a substitute for competent management. And this relentless pressure leads directly to burnout. And again, you're not alone. Here's a Gallup poll that showed 3/4 of employees have experienced burnout. That is a huge number. So I want to take a step back now that I've covered these team level signs. If you feel that other teams within your company don't have these issues, then the toxic environment may be hopefully temporary. Some of these may be the temporary mistakes of first time, inexperienced managers. They haven't learned how to delegate and communicate yet. They get over their heads in projects, so they wreck everybody else's work life balance to recover. The best outcome for you is that they learn and improve, or that they are replaced. Another outcome is that you look for other opportunities in the company and move to a better team. Sometimes that's not on the table, but maybe you can just ride out this difficult period and things will improve. That is far less likely to happen, improvement, when the toxic workplace is beyond your team. It's at the company level. So here are 4 signs of issues that are often tied directly to senior leadership, or they are actually foundational company values, which is a bad thing. So the first, and I think often the most visible systemic sign, is high employee turnover. If you see frequent departures across multiple teams and roles, that tells you that there are underlying unaddressed problems within the company. And the problem for you is that it means more stress for the people left behind. You have to absorb the extra workload, context switch, and train new people over and over again. The flip side of high turnover is low morale and disengagement amongst the people who stay. Which brings me to the next sign, low morale. This shows up as a widespread cloud of negativity, rampant complaints, toxic gossip, and just a general sense of dissatisfaction. This is where we see that trend of quiet quitting, which was never about being lazy. It's protective response to toxicity. The next critical systemic failure is rampant favoritism. You recognize this when you see promotions, key projects, and all the best opportunities being handed out based on personal connections rather than merit or qualifications. There's a very clear in crowd that gets the best treatment. I don't know about you, but I've never been in any in crowd. It's infuriating at work because it makes professional competence and hard work totally irrelevant. It also leads to cutthroat rivalry instead of collaboration. I mean, why help a coworker if they're just going to jump ahead of you because they're buddies with the boss? And you may be thinking that your perception is unfair and you're being a little biased about not getting that promotion. Well, this interesting study from Ohio State University shows nearly half of employees, 47% to be precise, reported favoritism from their managers. And if you're not at the cool kids table, then you experience the next factor: lack of growth opportunities. But lack of growth can be a strong factor without favoritism. There may just be a general lack of access to any meaningful career development or training or mentorship. There's no pathway because the company refuses to invest in its people. And stagnation leads to demotivation and minimal job satisfaction. Okay, so these factors, that's the company level, less likely to change. Although events like a merger or a complete replacement of the board can turn things around. But that's a bit of a unicorn event. The odds don't suggest it's worth waiting for. So what's after the company level? Well, now we're at the final boss level. These are the nuclear level signs. These issues actively compromise your health and your psychological safety. The primary nuclear sign is bullying. Bullying behavior operates on a spectrum. The lower end involves things like malicious gossip behind your back, but the higher end is direct abuse. Rudeness, yelling, harassment, discrimination. This is where the environment becomes truly hostile and we're getting into legal territory. But think about the scale of this. Various studies cite percentages that range from 30 to 50% of employees experiencing bullying in the workplace. It's unacceptable and it can lead to longer term consequences for your mental health. The next factor is that of unethical practices. This would likely be cutting corners on security or compliance. Pressure is put on employees to go along with dishonest practices for fear of losing their jobs. I'll just say that getting caught up in practices that are exposed by internal or external audits can follow you out of the company and just derail your career. And the final undeniable signal that the environment has reached nuclear toxicity is when you internalize it with chronic stress symptoms. I'm talking anxiety, insomnia, fatigue, digestive issues. What's going on here is that your body and mind are entering fight or flight mode because of the perceived threat of your workplace. And this can negatively impact your long-term mental or physical health. No job is worth compromising your health and psychological safety. So those are the 12 signs of a toxic workplace. If you'd like to download this free PDF checklist, there's a link in the description below. In future videos, we look at how to survive them or how to escape them. So please subscribe so as not to miss what's coming up and give the video a like, it helps a lot.